Chris, good morning. How we doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great as well. Appreciate you dropping on by. And with the fight, when it comes to Daniel Jacobs and Canelo Alvarez, Canelo is the A-list star. He's the big draw in boxing. But Jacobs is no slouch. So do you think there's resentment from Daniel Jacobs or his camp that he's kind of the B-side, if you will, in this coming up fight?
No, I don't think there's resentment. And I had this conversation with Daniel Jacobs yesterday on my podcast where, he doesn't like being the underdog. He doesn't like being the B-side, but he certainly understands it. Canelo Alvarez is not just the A-side in this fight. He's the A-side in every fight in boxing that he's going to compete in. I mean, he is the biggest star at a minimum in North American boxing and is in competition with Anthony Joshua as the biggest star in global boxing. So I think there's an understanding in Jacobs' camp that this is what it is. And look, it eases the feeling of being the B-side when you're compensated to the tune of $12 to $13 million per fight, as Jacobs is getting in this one. So I think he's just happy for another opportunity after losing to Gennady Golovkin back in 2017.
Yep, that much cash will make being the B-side A-okay. I wonder, from a tactical standpoint, do you think that Daniel Jacobs, his length and his power could be a problem for Canelo tomorrow night?
I think his power, certainly. His length would be if he was a more prolific jabber. Gennady Golovkin had his success against Canelo by just ricocheting a jab off his skull. But that's Golovkin's game. He is a very good power jabber. Daniel Jacobs is not. He uses the jab, but nowhere near as frequently. I think Jacobs, his biggest advantage is going to be those power shots, his mobility. He's a terrific athlete in the ring, and just his ability to create a moving target for Canelo Alvarez. I think, look, this is what boxing should be. This is the best against the best. I mean, these are two top three middleweights in the 160-pound division that are going to go to war tomorrow night. I mean, if boxing had more of this, DA, it wouldn't be on the fringes in the way it is now.
You're right. Chris Mannix joins us from DAZN. That's where you can catch this fight between Daniel Jacobs and Canelo Alvarez. That's on DAZN. Sign up now for DAZN's annual pass. That's just $100 to get this fight and every other one of their fights. Visit DAZN.com, DAZN.com. On the basketball side of things, last night, the Philadelphia 76ers dominated the Toronto Raptors. Let's start with the immediate future of the Raptors. How can they stop the bleeding in this series?
Well, I mean, two things. One, Kyle Lowry has to play better. And it feels like we say this a lot of times when the Raptors go down, but it feels like watching these games, he's looking for fouls and not shots. He's not playing with the type of aggressiveness offensively. I think he's done some decent things defensively, and that's a plus, but he's got to be much more assertive and much more effective offensively. Right now, it's the Kawhi and Siakam show out there, and then some others, including Kyle Lowry. The other part is, and this is the most befuddling, the bench is getting completely outplayed. And that to me was a position of strength for the Raptors coming into this postseason. I mean, the guys they have on that second unit with Van Vliet in that mix, the Serge Ibaka in that mix. I mean, you have some really talented bench players that you can go to, and they've just been beat up by the 76ers. And that can't happen. I mean, I know we all look at Embiid and what he did and, certainly what Ben Simmons can do, but it's those little things. The second unit guys, Kyle Lowry, those have got to change for Toronto to get back in the series.
You're right. Last year, Toronto had the best bench in basketball. This year, another very good bench in basketball, and it's just not showing up specifically in this series.
Van Vliet in particular, he has been really bad in this series.
Yeah, and so I wonder about Kawhi's future as well. I mean, if the Toronto Raptors can't get this thing together and at least make it a long series, specifically if they can't get out of the second round, is there any way Kawhi is going to want to jump back into the Raptors long-term in the offseason?
Yeah, I'd say this first, that anyone that claims to know what kind of goes on in Kawhi Leonard's head is just lying. Like, I've done multiple long profiles on him for Sports Illustrated, and I can tell you with 100% certainty that I have no idea what goes on in that guy's head. I mean, he just has a very tight inner circle. It's a family member or two, and his best friend is an assistant with the Raptors, Jeremy Castleberry. These guys kind of know what's going on in his head, but even they would probably admit that he's capable of making any decision. All that being said, it stands to reason that with the Clippers looming out there as a really good team, as a team that's going to be really impressive in the free agency room, if you get beat in the second round, your chances tend to crater. I've gone into this thinking that making the finals was probably the best chance Toronto had of retaining Kawhi Leonard. So it stands to reason that, getting beat in the second round is going to make it exceedingly difficult. But I know the Raptors have worked hard with Kawhi Leonard throughout the year. Masai Ujiri is a very personable guy and a terrific executive in his own right. So I think it'll be a tough call, but they've got to keep advancing if they want their chances to increase.
Sports Illustrated senior writer Chris Mannix is our guest here on the show. It's interesting you bring up the Clippers being really dangerous in the offseason because the Lakers are the A side, if you will, talking about what we were doing boxing-wise a couple minutes ago in L.A., and the Clippers have been the B side. In New York, the Knicks have been the A side. The Nets have been the B side. Out of the Clippers and Nets, what's the more dangerous franchise to be able to sign the Tier A Supermax free agents of the offseason?
Oh, I think it's the Clippers, no question. I think the Nets will struggle with the A-side guys, despite the fact that they've chipped away at that Knicks advantage in New York pretty significantly, but I don't think they're there yet. People in basketball know, just how good a coach Kenny Atkinson is, and Sean Marks has done a nice job, but I just don't think it compares to what the Clippers have going on. I mean, think about what the Clippers are going to be able to have in the room. You can have Doc Rivers, one of the most liked and respected and best coaches in all of basketball. You're going to have Lawrence Frank, who's going to come prepared for this meeting with, his multiple staff members and probably a pretty good presentation for whoever they're meeting with. And Steve Ballmer, who's really an asset to that team. Now, oftentimes, I think owners can be detriments. I mean, if you're the Knicks, I don't think you want James Dolan in a free agency meeting. But Steve Ballmer is this giant ball of energy who is all positivity, all excitement, and who has shown that he's a hands-off type of owner that lets Lawrence Frank and Doc Rivers do their thing while spending as much money as you need to construct a winner. I think there's no question. The Clippers are extremely dangerous. I mean, honestly, with the Lakers, I find myself wondering if the Phoenix Suns are a better coaching job at this point. That's where we are with the Lakers. The Suns, who have been dysfunctional in a coaching graveyard because of what the Lakers have done over the last few months and the last season or so. The Phoenix might actually be a better landing spot for a Monty Williams or somebody like that.
Chris Mannix joins us here on the show. He's going to be all over the fight tomorrow night for DAZN from Vegas. Canelo Alvarez and Daniel Jacobs. Sign up for DAZN's annual pass. That's $100 to get this fight and every other single fight that they have. That's more than 100 of them. Go to DAZN.com. You got a pick for tomorrow night's fight?
It's going to be close, but Canelo Alvarez in his history has nicked out a lot of close decisions. Erislandy Lara, Austin Trout, Gennady Golovkin just last year. I get the feeling this could be another one because Canelo has an ability with his speed and accuracy to steal rounds on judges' scorecards. So I think it'll be a firefight, but I think Canelo wins a close decision.
Canelo, Daniel Jacobs, tomorrow night on DAZN. Chris Mannix joining us here on the show. Check out his podcast as well, In the Paint for SI. And also, you can follow him on Twitter for all the latest at SI, Chris Mannix. Always good to catch up, brother. Be well. Enjoy the fight tomorrow night, man.